or whether it is his spirit. Peter wants in, and he is about to knock uh, that gate down. Get me off the street before they arrest me again. But, verse 16, but Peter continues knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. Now, J. Vernon includes verse 17 in before he stops reading, but this section ends with verse 16. So they just couldn't believe their eyes. They just couldn't believe that their prayers had been answered. And that concludes this section. Now let's move on to section verses 17 through 19. But he beckoned unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declaring unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go show these things unto James and to the brethren. And he departed, and he went into another place. Now Peter got out of town, since God had miraculously delivered him. Couldn't God have miraculously kept him safe in Jerusalem? Shouldn't Peter have said, I'm just going to stick around? God has delivered me out of prison, and I know he can keep me. Of course, God could keep him, but God expects us to use our common sense. Sometimes what looks like a tremendous faith in God is actually tempting God. Even after God had done some wonderful and miraculous things for you and for me, he still expects us to use common sense. Verse 18, 18, excuse me, I'm going to have to get it done. Verse 18. Now, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers. What was become of Peter? Notice that Dr. Luke uses the diminutive, no small stir, when he says there was no small stir. Believe me, he means there was a mighty big stir. Also, in chapter 15 of Acts, when Jerusalem came into the, or Judaism came into the church, Dr. Luke says they had no small dissension. This means they had a regular knockdown, dragout. They had a real fight, a regular Donnybrook. But Dr. Luke always uses that very gracious and gentle diminutive, no small stir or no small dissension. When the soldiers found what had happened and realized that Simon Peter was gone, I think they called out half the army. They must have made a house to house search. Maybe they threw a guard around the city to prevent his escape. There was no small stir, according to Luke. I'll say not. There is a mighty big stir. Verses 19. And when Herod had had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down to Judea, from Judea to Caesarea, and there abode. Herod is cold-blooded, and he is hard-hearted. He has no regard for human life, but by executing the guards, he is saying to the world that he does not believe Peter's escape was an act of God. He is holding his men responsible. He executes all the soldiers who were guarding Peter. Then he goes down to Caesarea, which is a resort area on the Mediterranean. Pilate enjoyed it down there. Actually, it was the Roman headquarters. Rome's Romans, like Pilate, didn't care for Jerusalem. They certainly didn't love Jerusalem as King David had. So now Herod beats it down to Caesarea to have a little vacation. And that ends